When my mom passed, I had to go in blindly and step into this level of responsibility that I was not prepared for.
It's not just the grieving of the death of our mother, but it's the grieving of the visions of the future. And it's also the grieving of who we were when she was in our lives too. So it's the grieving of that relationship.
In my heart, a kind of sorrow for my own child that he doesn't get to experience two grandmothers who carried so much wisdom and experience.
A lot of the belonging that comes, I believe, from fatherhood, it puts men in the space of understanding creation.
And the reality is of what we learn within ourselves, but even towards our parents, is we and they did the best they could in that moment. And there's always opportunity for growth no matter what.
I wanted her because she didn't get to have her feet in the water again, to have her hands in the soil, to have her eyes see the stars, and to have her heart fulfilled again, to be back home. And I couldn't do it without someone else.
Aloha, and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast.
Before we begin the next episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to ask for your support in helping us grow our podcast.
Take a moment to like, subscribe, or follow on whatever platform you're watching this on.
Your engagement helps us to grow our platform as well as allows us to invite even more interesting interviews in the future. I hope you enjoy the following episode and wish that you gain insight, clarity, or knowledge about what it means for you to embrace being human.
Aloha, and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. I have a very special guest that I'm very excited to sit with and share our conversation. It's my dear brother, Kale. And I've known Kale for a couple years now, off and on. We initially met on a virtual container regarding men's work through the platform of Sacred Sons. And since then, I've always felt this deep desire and inclination to stay connected and potentially somewhere down the line, share space, share wisdom, learn. As you'll see from this conversation, how much wisdom there is to be shared through the eyes of Kale with his indigenous wisdom and experiences, his heritage, the culture, and his own process of what it means to live on this planet as a human being. And so I'd like to introduce my dear brother Kale. Thank you so much for being here.
Mahalo. Yeah, just grateful to be here. It's good already. Just to be here, being greeted, just the little, drop in that we had. So I was like, yeah, just excited for what's to come, man. So I'm here for it. Mm-hmm. Take me on a journey, my brother. Take me there.
I'd love for you, if you feel open and available in this moment, to ground us in with what you feel is necessary, whether it be prayer, whether it be some words. Feel free to set our container together with each other.
Well, just taking a breath in. Hanu. E homai kaike mai luna mai. O na mea huna no ea o na mele e homai. E homai. E homai kaike mai luna mai. O na mea huna no ea o na mele e homai. E homai. E homai. Homai kaike mai luna mai e. O na mea huna no ea o na mele homai. E homai. E homai e. And in saying the prayers and even in the language that is being brought forward, is just being a mouthpiece for these utterances that have come long before I was ever around. And in this way, by opening through that channel, it's a recognition to all those teachers and mentors, family members who have said the same prayer and taught me these little ways of understanding myself through my life. And so it's one part invocation, one part honoring, and one part preparation, for things to come. And so in that, it's just granting to us, what comes through in the songs, in the no'eau, the sayings, these proverbs, if you will, that have, I would say, directed a lot of my life, just in that way, because it's not just repetitive or redundant in that sense. It enhances as life goes on. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like, how do you find composting as being the thing that invigorates more nutrients in the soil of your existence. So yeah, thank you for that invitation.
Thank you so much, brother, for sharing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You know, as I get older, I start to realize, remember, and also continue to learn the importance and profoundness of prayer. The lack of it in just for my own self and in society in general, the day-to-day interactions of prayer, the honoring of what was before us, but as well as what is present to this moment, and all of which what comes after. I'm grateful to be able to share space with people such as yourself who hold that so dearly in their essence of what being human really is. There's so much history that has led us to this moment. The good and the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the light and the dark, all the polarities. And prayer always returns me to the neutral ground of it all, of all that is necessary and all that is important in order for us to do the work that we're being called to do. And so thank you again for that remembrance. It's so beautiful to finally be in a space where I get to hear you physically chant in person.
Yeah.
It's the ebb and flow of life where we see each other in Whole Foods and we connect, and then, you know, we part ways for a little bit, and here we are sitting in my garage getting to finally film together. Love it.
It all starts with groceries.
It all starts with nourishment, right?
Exactly.
So to begin this conversation, I'd like to actually start from, I guess, more relevant timeline as we unpack and going backwards a little bit, because there's quite a bit to cover in terms of my curiosities of you as a person, but also just I know there's so much potency for you to share with our listeners. Where I would like to begin is congratulating you into the new identity of fatherhood, which is right around the corner. I know you're due in a couple months, and I'm so excited for you. Fatherhood and just the experience of being a father as well as supporting other fathers is something that I have on my awareness as a deep passion and calling. It's a dynamic that isn't discussed quite in-depthly in terms of what does it actually mean to be a father and how to do it in your way, but also in a good way for the keiki. It's a very new conversation for me, at least from what I'm learning. And I'm always excited to hear when someone else that I am connected to is stepping into that portal. And so my first question for you is, how are you feeling? How's that process been stepping, or let's say preparing to fully step into the doorway of fatherhood?
Yeah. Thank you, bro. I'll just start by saying I don't know anything. I've been learning along the way. It's been, immense. And a lot of my learning is being there for her and knowing that this life growing in her is requiring a lot from her. And she's needing support. She's needing to be held, not because she's frail or fragile. She's just doing the most spiritual, immense thing, I believe, of this journey to step into motherhood. She takes her place amongst her own mother and her grandmothers before her. And so I'm just a man. I am the father too. And I'm not just saying this to belittle myself. I'm giving myself the understanding of that humility that's needed to witness and to be supportive of this woman. Because she's lived her life before me. She's living her life with me now, and I'm honored. And she's bringing a life forward with me, and I'm honored because she made that choice. And it's the most endearing choice I can have from another person, but also from this woman who I deeply love and care for immensely. She's stepping onto that path. And so for me to be the companion in that, to make sure her breakfast is ready, she has the things she needs at night so she can go to sleep through the aches of her legs, to know like if she's not feeling well, is having not such a good day, that I can put myself aside and be more present with her. It's invoked in me too an understanding of like, how can I be more caring and more tender and not just soft, but applying that action towards it, right? Every morning a letter. And if I don't do it immediately in the morning, I'll get to it during the day. That's for sure. And I write her a letter to our daughter so that they, so that she, baby, one day will know who her father is and was before she arrived. And then also for my wife to know, this is how I want to dedicate and devote to you. Is this understanding too? So yeah, that's been my journey of this, as just personally, and that was immense, and grateful for other fathers that are out there that have adult children who's like, oh yeah, you know, I'm getting super excited, and they're also like, I just remember too, you know, and I'm like, oh, thank you. And then it's also, you know, some sharing of stories of like how they also, you know, when children was coming, they weren't present. And so I kind of sit with this phrase a lot too, which is like, sometimes the worst example is the best example. Not that these men are terrible at all. It's just they gathered lessons from their experience, and all of their, you know, positivity and optimism that they want to give to me and blessings. They're also like, hey, be forewarned, because I want to help. And so that's been priceless, you know, in that journey. So brotherhood, you know, learning, masculinity, learning, fatherhood, learning. And then also just me as Kale, going to dawn this next stage of life. So I'm trying, you know, not everything, not 1,000 things to understand the one, right? Even though that's helpful. But I want to get really good at a few things right now, so that I can build the capacity. So when baby's here, I can add more to it, so that my wife can tend to herself too, you know, afterwards, and we have the right support around us. And that's my job. She's here nesting, creating, involving in the most profound way. And it's my role and duty, responsibility that I'm honored to have to create the things around that. And so one more thing that it's going to go for a little bit, but this part of it is an understanding of, you know, the faith that comes by way of the indigeneity of an understanding of how this goes. So many times I have conversations with people of like, well, in order for me to do this one thing, I have to have this stuff, all these other things. I have to get to this one place, this destination, this crossing of the finish line, so that I can actually do this thing. And obviously that comes from wanting to learn. It comes from wanting to enhance where you're at. But also, if you're always seeking information, you're not actually doing and receiving what you're present with and what's here. So a lot of the belonging that comes, I believe, from fatherhood, it puts men in the space of understanding creation on a large level. So if we have an understanding of creation and of God and of goddesses, and let's just say the one God, inside of that womb is the presence of a soul that is journeying across many lifetimes, possibly, many universes. And we say many universes as a paradox to universe, you know, the multiverse or something. So many times the interpretation of the God is all-knowing, omnipresent, all everywhere, all the time, omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, you know, everything all the time. So if that's the case for us outside, what is that then within the creation of the womb? Because if that is creator, and that's what that is, I believe the forming of a baby within the womb is that very presence of the God and the goddess within. So it's not like, oh, I'm so high on this level of my understanding that now I'm saying because of it, I'm like, oh, I'm shaking with the mistakes, shaking with the not knowing,
The
humbleness of my own ignorance and frailties as well. Because as a man, now we see the faith alive, growing and maturing. For us, which seems like, 9-10 months. For this one in here, this is an eternity. The time doesn't exist. But yet she hears the voices of the father and the mother and the friends and the community around, and they're still awakening to that too. So it's just that beautiful, reality that many people might attribute like what I'm saying as being spiritual. I'm saying, no, this is right here live in the flesh. I don't see it as a concept. I'm not navigating this as if this is a thought and then this is what I'm actually present to. It's like, no, they're the same.
This is it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm walking with.
As I was listening to you, just remembering my own journey and the crucial phase of once you find out, you learn that, oh, life's about to change.
Yeah.
And I have potentially 9 months in many ways what comes to get my shit together, and and as I listen to you with this deep, like not even understanding, but just knowing within yourself your role of what is important and what is priority for you during this time. Because my own past experience of the transitional phase of preparing for baby to enter the world was not an easy one. And at the same time, like your statement of sometimes the best example is the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I relate to that very deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And I see, as I grow as a father and I support other fathers, I see this transformation happening when it comes to the identity of a father. And more fathers are wanting to be involved in the day-to-day life and grew up without that.
Yeah.
And so as we talk about the worst case scenarios of many people growing up without a father, or having a father whose priority is providing, and that comes with, putting 80-hour weeks of work in order to take care of the family, but not being present. So even this concept of sacrifice, and a lot of that is being redefined, and it's really beautiful. And to hear your journey, your thought process, your mindset of your priorities is really beautiful. And for me, how I see this identity evolving, where when I was becoming a father, it was this, I'm lost and I don't know what to do, and I'm stressed, and I'm not necessarily resourced, prepared, or even capable right now of really embodying what's happening to me. Therefore, we cope. We cope with work, we cope with alcohol, we cope with whatever it may be. Because the idea of becoming a father at the time was so overwhelming because of the lack of presence of a true example of how to navigate that as as it comes into reality. So I just wanted to say my appreciation for what you just shared is really profound and really beautiful, and so much medicine in there. Even for myself, like as I was listening to you, I was transporting back to the times where I was like, oh man, I'm slightly triggered, and I could have done better. And it's all a lesson process, and the reality is of what we learn within ourselves, but even towards our parents, is they did the best they could in that moment, and there's always opportunity for growth no matter what. And so, as you are embodying this phase, considering everything you've learned over the last couple of years, your upbringing as a father, what are 2 or 3 key things you hold dearly that you would like to pass on to your child as you bring them up? Like for me, what I've learned as importance is like adaptability. Being adaptable to especially nowadays where things are changing very fast. I've learned that adaptability is a superpower, and not being attached to outcome, but being more so present to moment, and taking everything in that way. The other thing is emotional intelligence as a man, like being comfortable with your emotions to a degree of where you understand them, and having that as a child, I think is really profound, or to grow into that. So I'm curious with what information, what knowledge, what wisdom for sure that you're going to embody as a role model for your child.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, first thing comes up in service to creation, and it means so much, right? This is generally speaking. There's a couple of routes here. I guess for me the first route that I hope to bring forward as a father to my baby is that they have such a loving presence that they never have to search outside of it to find that love from someone else. That they are so well resourced from me and their mother, that they're not reliant on it, but it actually gives them freedom to know that they can go out into the world in a loving way and have the direction, the discernment, and decisions on how they choose to be loved and to receive love and where they can find love, because they've already gotten so much from us as an example. So, affection, depth of being, just knowing a belonging, that connection isn't severed. One day she's going to grow up, she's going to need to have her own family and find her own relationships with other people, whoever she chooses. So I hope that I can bring that first and foremost into her life, is that loving presence of a father, and in direct collaboration and co-creation with the mom. And that's what I've always, not always understood, but I've started to, because my mother was that way for me. I didn't have my biological father in my life. Again, one of those things, he wasn't there. So who do I become as the one who is there, who wants to be there? So I know what not to do. That's enough for me. Yeah. And then I've also had a mother who was on her journey of understanding herself along the way as I was growing up. So I have that as a great example too. So it's not about, this binary oppositional duality of femininity and masculinity.
Mm-mm.
They're still companions. Those two, they made me,
Mm.
you know, and creation came and said, you will have the presence of a human being now from before you were like the spirit or the God made incarnate into this human flesh. And so that's the first thing, love. That's what this reality needs. And I want to give that to my baby.
Mm.
The second thing was understanding home and how to be at home. And there's an impoverishment of belonging in our modern society because everything's so globalized and so accessible, so mobile, and homogenizing, right? Like everything's just kind of the same. I hope to bring her the distinction and the uniqueness of what it means to be here at home on Maui, so that she can walk with that proud, you know, not with arrogance, but with a pride. Like, this is where I come from, and this is what I know. This is how I've been able to be nurtured and nourished in my childhood with guidance from my parents, and now I can stand on my own 2 feet, knowing that this place is my home. And everything gathered from here, this ike, you know, this knowledge, this vision, she can share with the world the way she chooses, because she wasn't severed from that tie. So that's a big part for me, is to know that she can be raised with the land and the ocean of her birth and being connected to that all the time. And then the third one is, I want her to understand too that mom and dad are working really hard and sacrifices are being made, and that's okay. Because those sacrifices are for things to change, so that you're not burdened by the things that we weren't able to take care of. And I just want her to know that. Because she's going to have her own challenges.
Yeah.
She's going to have her own things she's going to move through, but I don't want her to feel that from me. And, you know, I'm going to fuck it up. I know. And I'm not okay with it. But it's real. And so that's the one that I really hope to let her understand. You know, that mom and dad, we did our best. And we showed up that way, like how you said before. You know, I can't say that my father did his best. I can't say that because he wasn't there. But I know my mother did. And so that's what I hope, that she will experience both her parents in that way. That she's like, oh, wow, like, you know, sometimes I just really don't like you guys. But I know you're doing your best too. And that's what I hope. So, yeah, those 3 things.
Wow, that's so beautiful, brother. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You know, to go a little bit of my own experience, as you shared that last part of that you're both doing a lot of sacrificing, but also doing the best you can. And the initial intention of like, I want to make sure the work that I'm carrying for myself isn't projected onto my baby to carry on and have to complete. And yes, we're going to fuck up and we are going to unconsciously pass things down. But at the same time, like, to have that awareness is really powerful. And for me, like, me and my 7-year-old son, me and his mother are separated. And as I was listening to you share and get slightly emotional, I felt it in my own body of the sadness that my son doesn't have parents who are together. And we also did the best we could, considering everything that has happened. And we continue to do the best we can. And what I heard was, at the end of the day, that's all we want them to know, is that it's not their fault. It is not something for them that we made the choices we made in the past and what we're doing now in order for us to prevent them having to carry that forward for us. And so I just want to thank you for bringing that energy into the conversation, because it is, relationships are, in my personal opinion, what I'll say is one of the hardest things to navigate in this human experience. It is, you know, one of the best ways to see the mirror, but also one of the hardest ways to accept yourself in many ways. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And for me, how it unfolded is the way it was written for us. And I can see the potency of us as individuals now as co-parents, showing up for our child and basically limiting the parts that would have been passed on to him if we continued. And now we're being able to show up in such a beautiful way for each other as we learn to do that, but also more so for our son, who, what I can feel and see is he feels even more safe than he did in the past. He's able to be more himself. Yeah, thank you for that, because it's so true that there is a lot of sacrifice that comes, but as well as the work that is being presented on the day-to-day basis and the difficulties of what that is as you raise a child. Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of life and the miracles of what it's like to bring life into this beautiful experience, there's also the polarities of it, which me and you have experience in and relate to, which is loss. I was feeling your energy as you were talking about giving life, and you brought up your mom quite a bit. And I'd like to take this opportunity to honor both of our mothers who are no longer on this plane with us in the physical form, and all that they have done in order for us to become who we are. And as well as being able to now support, guide, protect, and show us the way in ways they couldn't do in the physical form. As I tell most people nowadays, is I feel more connected to my mother than I ever have. And I feel more in union with her than I ever have.
Yeah.
And the power of what she carries is tenfold, 20-fold, to the degree of where I have so much faith and trust in my path now.
Yeah.
And so from my own experience of having, a little while where my son got to experience her briefly, but on the flip side of it, his mom, his grandma, passed away 3 months after he was born. And so, there's this in my heart, kind of sorrow for my own child that he doesn't get to experience two grandmothers who carried so much wisdom and experience, and just that loving, nurture, caring energy that plays such a big role in the upbringing of a child. I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of share, tell stories, bring life to your mother, or if there's anything you feel called to share.
Yeah, my mother, Rolianne, Leilani, she, KK to some, to others. She really loved taking care of others, being a source of support, companionship, friendship, care. She was a woman of the community, and she did that in many ways. She had a personality, she has a personality. She has a character. She has a very, very felt presence. When she enters the room, everything shifts. Not because she's craving attention, not because she's looking for validation, not because she just is unabashedly, herself, and revealing to all her own hurts and pains in such simple moments, and wanting to provide food for people always. A lot of my understanding of my family, who my family is to me, who I am within the family, comes by way of my mother and her food, and bringing us together for that and celebrating with food. It's very Hawaiian. She's very much that. So I too, I'm hurt, I'm hurt that she's gone, because my baby's not gonna know her grandma. And so there's ways about it for me that, I'm gonna have a very difficult time ever letting go of that, because her presence is felt, and I know she lives through me, and it was on her leaving that this one is arriving. And so I'm needing to navigate that understanding of coming and going, of life received and death received, and not as a transaction for things, but just a deeper sense of what it is I'm actually doing. And who am I now as a motherless son? And who was I when she was in my life? And who do I become now as a father without the guidance of my mother? But with this special gift of life coming towards me so that I can be initiated into these things, just like her dying initiated me into something else. And it's coming back to back. And so I don't have any clear wisdoms for this way. I'm just in awe and in reverence of the transpiring that happens. And in the ways ancestors do, they've been here before too. And so I just speak on this in a way that says, I'll always bow my head and bend my knee to the gravity of loss. And I'll do also the same to the levity that comes with being blessed with child, because that's what many people are. So in the same voice, I say I'm falling and I'm rising. I'm blossoming as I wilt, and I'm grateful for it. Ki olelo I ke ola, ki olelo I tamate. In the word there is life, and in the word there is death. And those are the sayings of our ancestors, of the ike kupuna, the ancestral intelligence that comes through, and I'm grateful I can live through that saying and receive the message and the metaphor, which is the language of the sacred through these things. So yeah, I'm still angry. I'm still very much upset, and I don't feel the need to rationalize my grief. I just really want to embrace it and fully live through it. Because we were talking about not passing on things to our child in ways that, you know, that we need to take care of. But I do want my daughter to know what grieving looks like.
Yes.
And what lamentations sound like. And what it's like to witness a strong man that's her father that can shed tears out of gratitude and out of just a humble submission and also out of pain and not trying to keep her from it because it's human. It's the art of human making. So those are one of the things I want to pass on to her, so that she can walk with grief.
My whole process of grief was a very difficult one. I was not prepared for the level of anger that came my way through my body. There were a lot of key factors to that of, you know, not being able to say goodbye, not to be able to have a conversation, being angry at myself, not paying attention. My son and his mom weren't able to make it, and I had to step into this role as big brother and eldest son to take the reins of the process and assist my father, who was also in the big unknown of what this means, because he also was being caretaken by my mother while she was alive with his health issues. So a lot of the present dynamics he wasn't even aware of.
Right.
So I had to go in blindly and step into this level of responsibility that I was not prepared for. So everything that I knew my life was no longer my identity, my responsibilities, my environment. And so it was very clear that the initiation that my mom was gifting me was a complete reset. As I stepped into this new life, this new version of myself, through the depths of anger and sorrow and grief, for me, the process of grief was just immensely difficult, to the point of where I had to pause my life. And the only way out of it, from what I learned, is two things. I had to be with that. I had to sit through that fire. And two, I had to ask for support. And then I reached out to my brother Scott, who was in Ohio at the time, and invited him because he was experiencing grief. And I said, hey, I'm about to fall apart, and I just need someone safe that I know I could fall apart around and with, and make sure that the house is good. And if anything, pull me out when I get too deep. And so he showed up, and he ended up never leaving. And then we created this sanctuary that we call the House of Feeling, which is a space of grief. During my time of grief, everything was black and white. I had no sense of inspiration, purpose. It's just I was overtaken by all these emotions. And then up until a couple months ago, I started to see color. And then I made a trip back out to Oahu with my now partner, and I was showing her all these amazing places. And I had this moment where I was looking up at the mountains, and I was like, whoa, everything is vibrant right now. And I had this moment with my mom, and she's like, welcome back. Like, I felt life again. And that's when I realized, like, oh, I'm rebirthing. I'm evolving. And I have a sense of self again, which took like a year and a half. And what I've learned is there's no timeline on grief. It's showing you all of these parts of yourself that have not been acknowledged for a long time. And that's maybe where the anger comes in, the shame, the guilt, the sadness. And in order for you to actually initiate and go through this process, you have to commune and relate to these parts of you. And I'm glad I did, because it allowed me to have a deeper sense of self and reset my life that was completely aligned with what felt good for me in reciprocation, and trickled down to my son and to my sister. So with grief, I'm always curious about this in terms of what people share, because there is no roadmap and there's not a lot of conversations around grief, which is really mind-boggling, because I've learned that the most potent portal in this human experience is loss, is grief. And if you're willing to step into this grief portal openly with complete surrender, there's a deep transformation that happens. So I'm curious if you'd like to share a little bit about your grief process from a vulnerable perspective of the shock and then what led to how you navigated the rest of the months moving forward to now, where death has now become life and full circle spectrum, like you just said.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, brother. It's good to hear you. And just like stepping into that journey with you, just like, wow, that gathering, potent. Yeah, so journeying back, to that moment, I was actually, I was hosting an event here on Maui. It was actually the last day. It was on a Sunday. It was August 11th. And I had gotten a call from my dad that my mother had died. This is the part that makes me angry. Is because she was celebrating her retirement.
Mm-hmm.
So it meant she was going to have more time to be with me, with my siblings, with my dad. And that she had this plan and this vision to share life with my dad in a certain way, and with us, and to be back here in Hawaii and back at our homeland, our birthplace. And I was just residing in that. I was just so ready for that. And I got that call and I was torn apart. And I was at this event and nobody knew what was going on. I went, everything left. All sense of civility and proper ways of being and courtesies, politeness was gone. And thankfully, I have good brothers that were at that time to come and hold me, to come and receive me, and to bring me, to help me move through that. And as that process had moved, I created ceremony with all of those brothers, and I had, through their consent and their understanding of the process, because they were like, go, you just need to be by it. I was like, no, that's the last thing I need. The last thing I need is to process this by myself and to somehow take me out of this. It's like, no, I'm here. It's happening. It happened. And I'm still here. Mm-hmm. It's not even about the job. It's not even about facilitation at this point. It's about getting to the reclamation of my mother's soul. Because she's away. She's out in Florida. So I asked them, can you help me? So I set up the ceremony in a way that they too would go through their breathwork journey and experience their own mothers. How they came into the world, their relationship with their mom, how it was when they were child to adolescent to young adult to where they are now, and how they perceive her now into the future. And what does that mean and what does that look like? And so they willingly stepped into that ceremony, and then I could send the prayers up too. So it was immense, man, just in that way. And then because of how things had happened, it was like funeral there because she was living in New York at the time. My siblings and I getting all together with our partners in the house, and it was my job, it was my role as the eldest son to fulfill the ceremonial way. Right? Every night, have a fire, talk about mom, give prayers to mom, talk about each other. Every morning, before breakfast, check in, circle up. Things in between the day, people coming over and leaving, and then checking in with everybody. So I'd set it up like 3 times a day.
Wow.
Or two times in the day, and then one in the evening. And the hope was that, as we traverse through these spaces, that when time for mom's funeral, we would be ready to be with the people. And it worked.
Wow.
We all gave our ceremony to that. And being there, to the casket. And, a plastic version of my mother will never suffice in my imagery. So I can't really see her. It's blurry because I don't accept it. I accept her living memory, not that one. But I remember how that went, and I'll remember that. And so when it came for that funeral, we gave the service, as a family. And that's part of the grief, right? Is it's not a feeling, it's an action. It's something that you do. Yeah. It's a verb. And so our ability to be there, I was just setting it up in a way that's ceremonial. People get smudged before they come in. They get a gift of cedar. They get, something that we created, a little kind of like postcard thing with mom's song on there and everything. Wow. And then we didn't just talk about her history. We talked about who she was and is to us, and how we see her and how we feel, and as a way to invigorate them as witnesses to this funerary rite of a ceremony that you should watch people, a family that are feeling the depths of this devastation. At their scathing remarks and their praises and their back and forth of elation and desperation. And that should be witnessed, because I'm not here to teach it. I'm here to embody it. And so did my siblings. And so we would go from the ranges of cracky jokes about mom and the way she loves stinky food, you know, and all of this. And then how she said, like, my dad can, you know, if he wants to, she's no longer around, he can go get a Filipino woman and then take care of him, you know. Right? Yeah. And then boom, crash down. Yeah. This is not how it's supposed to be. We had another life. And so it's not just the grieving of the death of our mother, but it's the grieving of the visions of the future. And it's also the grieving of who we were when she was in our lives too. So it's the grieving of that relationship. And so that's been the journey. And so then now, just as the cycle continues, baby girl, I had that ceremony to call my mother's soul back home. A month later, we're pregnant because I wanted her, because she didn't get to have her feet in the water again, to have her hands in the soil, to have her eyes see the stars, and to have her heart fulfilled again, to be back home. And I couldn't do it without someone else. And so this baby is going to be that. She's herself. She's going to be who she is. But I know from those ceremonies and the way that it goes, mom is going to experience this again through her progeny, through her granddaughter. And that is my prayer.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, that's why I love this concept, this idea of sitting and just being humans and talking about it. You know, it's these stories, the memories that really bring out the human essence and the magic of what it is to be human, and the fact that we can sit here and share story and remember and honor. I'm grateful to be able to do that with you. Remembering to honor our mothers as they lived through us, and give thanks for all that they did, have done, and continue to do for us. So much love.
Yeah, ancestors and descendants. And so that's the other piece of it all too, you know, through the grieving and the grief and the way that we speak on it. Yeah, we just talking story, you know. But there's some very kind of clear understandings that happen, right? Like how you said, it's surrender, but it's also resistance. So one part of it, not that they're in binary opposition, but there's a polarity, there's a dynamic of the duality of the consciousness that comes. In one way, I am surrendering to this thing because I must, because I'm human, and this is what actually shapes me and crafts me to be. So I will surrender it. But again, it's unwilling. It's because it was set upon you that this life of this woman, this person who brought life into you, this woman who carries genealogy and lineage, crafted you. And so in her death, she'll craft you again. She will shape you. And so there is a part of it, but you can't accept it willingly because it's happening. So that resistance and that friction is the other part of it. The grief and the praising too. I resist this because I'm upset of its going on, because death is not a punishment for being alive. It's the entrusting of life so that you continue to live. It's not to take from you. It's to tell you this is how you do it, because you only have so many breaths to give. So where are you putting your energy towards? What is really in alignment with you? What are the values that are passed on to you from those that brought you in? And also too, what does it mean for you to carry it all? So these all should be reevaluated from the death. If we want to call it transformation, right? If we want to call it, it's not the end, because that's what I hear a lot from people too. It's like, oh, you know, death is not the end. It's not final. It's just a transformation. And I'm like, that's only worth it if you actually put meaning behind it and the behavior changes. And then the action is real. Otherwise, it's just talk.
Yeah.
It's just talk, right? And that's what I want to get to with people in this understanding. It's like, yeah, you know, and you can get a remedy for your grieving and give you a 12-step program, but what is that really doing? Maybe it's a call to you to find the relationships that are really meaningful to you, just like you did with Scott. You called him in and he's here and he never left because it became his grief too. It wasn't something to run away from or to shy from. It was something to move towards, as resistant as you might feel, as hesitant as you might be, as many blockages as there are. Approach it with all of the friction coming. And that will continue to shape you. And we're all a little bent, you know? And there isn't a need to make it perfect. It's messy, as it should be. It should take you to some depths that you wouldn't be able to obtain on your own. Because the life, as it's being lived, doesn't have the consequence of death. That's part of it. Death shouldn't be registered as, you know,
Right.
this is the hard rule. No, they're two together. Life and death actually are companions. Not fearing what's coming. Because that's where a lot of it comes from, death phobia, yeah?
Yeah.
Achieve, do this, get all these things done because, you know, I have so much time, I got to invest in the future. But then you're also losing everything that you're present with.
Right.
Which is the most human thing we can do, is to know that we're not in control. It's good to have ambitions and destinations and guidance. But to assume that we're above all of that, it only creates suppression and repression and oppression of yourself, to the denial of your relationships that you have. And then that creates dissonance and division and separate. Oh, we go on and on and on. It all comes from this one thing, the avoidance of truly living and the avoidance of death being the invigorator for the channel. So,
Wow. That was a perfect transition.
yeah.
So I'd love to hear your definition of this in today's reality, especially after what you just shared, is now as being a father, before you're a father, and while you're a father, you're also a man. And for you, with the way you grew up and the knowledge you carry and the wisdom you share, what does it mean to be a man in today's world? And I have a couple follow-up questions with that, because there's a lot of a light or a magnifying glass being shined over the last couple of years of masculinity,
Yeah.
and which is how we met, of, you know, trying to better understand how to be a better version of ourselves as a man,
Yeah.
through Sacred Sons. And so as you've worked all over the world, working with so many different variations of men, what does it mean for you to be a man?
For me, is always the question of the responsibility. Can you show up to these things that are very real and present in your life? Not because you have to fix it, or you have a problem to solve, or there's some kind of remedy that needs to be achieved by your presence, but just to actually be present. Because a lot of men are not. So I don't have this idea of what a man should be. I just know what we've been missing, because I've seen it across the world. Men have a very difficult time with being present with what is.
Yes.
We're constantly wanting to solve something or give advice, tell it like it is. And then there's this attitude that comes from it of like, well, if you don't like it, you know, then fuck you. For me, that's not being a man. A man is able to adapt and to respond to the times that he's in.
Yes.
And to witness them fully. And not to come into a place of binary oppositions of isms, you know, and ideological chains and demands. Not that we don't have labels or identifications, but it's just, as a man, how well are you adapting to this time?
Right.
How well are you responding? Not reacting, not being triggered, not from a place of your own emotional immaturity and lack of intelligence, because you haven't been doing that work that everybody talks about. Maybe the responsible thing for you to do is to understand that you need to take care of yourself. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Not just physically, not just in achievement, not just in how far you can go. How long can you do it for? Because you're going to break.
Yeah.
Too much, too soon, going to break. Too fast or too long, going to break.
Yeah.
So can you do the responsible thing? Slow down, stop, watch, witness, be present. Be present with your kids, with your partner, whoever it may be, with your parents, your siblings, your friends, your community, however many ways you want to see it. Can you stop and just slow down and not let this thing come into it? This is a poor master. It's meant to be of service to this one. This is the one that invokes the real response of the evolution that you're actually looking for, that you actually want, is here when it's balanced and it's intuitive. It's deeply felt. It's not just about vulnerability. It's not just about courage. Those things are great. But it's like, what are you doing here? So again, what is a man? I don't know. It's like that question, like, what is a woman? I don't know. It's like, but that's not where I'm coming from.
Right.
I'm just saying the embodiment of this requires all of us carrying the vision together. Not because we have to throw away the old paradigms of the patriarchy and whatever else. It's just we're being asked in a new way as men that have this technology, that have the knowledge of our ancestors, that have only so many breaths to give. Now what is revealed? Right? Stop causing dust. Let it settle. Stop running around so fast because you just end up sniffing your own ass type of thing. So for me, responsibility.
Wow. So as we're talking about being a man in general, it was leading me to the conversation of what men are actually experiencing
Yeah.
in their own lives and their own bodies and their minds and their hearts, and it's pretty heavy as you observe like all that we are carrying, and then to see the pandemic of depression and the overwhelming depression leading to suicides, and that's something that's been on my awareness as I've lost a few brothers on this journey. And I also, through allowing myself to be vulnerable, whether it's attending or facilitating men's circles or father circles, there's this dynamic of being witnessed. And it's probably the most crucial aspect of my grief process was allowing myself to be witnessed in it, as well as being witnessed in a way, navigating through it. And I'm seeing that most men, as much as they desire to be witnessed, it's one of the things they're most afraid of.
Yeah.
And being in these containers with Sacred Sons, where we have men come together, and the whole aspect of it is the safety of being witnessed in your own process and emotions. I'd love to hear what you've learned through these experiences, through yourself, and maybe even like not necessarily solutions, but I'm sure there's some ancient wisdom here when it comes to navigating these overwhelming emotions as a man, and the anger that we carry, and more so the suppressed anger that turns to rage. And I know you talked about a lot of somatic work you do in terms of putting on the gloves and turning off the brain and just letting it out physically is one way of tuning into this rage in a healthy way, because it's not that it's toxic or bad. No. It's necessary in our roles. But I'd love for you to share from someone who's observed this from outside and been within, of the processing that happens as we embody ourselves as men, and what comes up of the shame, the anger, the resentments, and then how much of our fellow brothers are carrying this depression. What do you think are some root causes of that from a systemic standpoint or cultural, as well as what are some remedies you've seen in order for us to also inspire other men who are carrying this lone wolf energy themselves and having to carry life themselves and not necessarily having the push or the support to seek otherwise? What are some insights you have as someone who holds this type of space?
There's an understanding that we have our modern society, and there's an impoverishment here, which is that as much as people may understand culture, what does it mean to be cultureless? So we look at modernity, and we'll just use the United States, for example. You and I both are Americanized. I'm not speaking as if like I'm some indigenous man that's only lived in the jungle. Like I'm speaking directly to the understanding that I have chosen a life towards ancestral knowledge that has put me in a position, right, of understanding this is one context and here's another. The two of them, when compared and contrasted, creates a different perception that many people don't have access to. So that's what I speak from. And I speak in that way because I made that choice. I chose not to let the modern societal thinking of ambitions and status and materialism run my life. I saw that and I pursued it to make a living because that's what's being required. But then I also chose to immerse myself into the indigeneity, which has been snuffed out through the process of this machine that is going on. And I say it that way because people are suffering from that. And we can have the attitude that, this is the best it's ever been, right? Everybody has more access to water, more access to care, healthcare, more access. to transport and being able to find mobility in places that we have never really quite seen before, right? In the time of our industrialization. What are the cracks in the foundation? What are the frays and the tears of the fabric? And we see that when we talk about this age of loneliness for men, this depression, this impotent rage, right, or the depression. And what I'm seeing is that this impoverishment is that because of the culturelessness, it leaves men without direction, leaves them without the proper tools to meet life's challenges head on, because they have been conditioned to believe that they are powerless. So what happens? Well, if you feel powerless, there's two extremes. One, you're going to go so far as to grasp as much power as you can because there's a void there. Or you're going to go so far down into not having it that you never shine in your life at all. You go flat and you numb. So a lot of that is not just about safety, right? But about finding community and communion with others that can involve themselves in the very things that you're struggling with. So to me, it's a deeply spiritual thing. It's like if we are looking at the impoverishment of the cultureless culture, what happens to the man? What happens to their spirituality? What happens to their faith? Well, if they don't feel like what they're doing is contributing to anything, then where's their value? And if the society is saying to be a high value man, it has to look this way. Well, I don't fit that. And then we also have, there's the alpha male. Well, I don't fit that. So if you never find a place to where you can fit or actually see living examples of how things could be differently or otherwise, then of course you're going to self-reflect on, I don't belong here. And that not belonging is a severance from a culture that used to bring you in, that was once here to say, here's the initiation towards your adolescence because now you're in puberty. So that's the difference between a rite of passage and an initiation, is that the initiation happens to you regardless of what you want, because it's not about that. It's the necessity of you transferring into the other stages of life, right? And then the rites of passage is when the community that's around you, that should be there, the village, to then acknowledge that you've made this movement towards, you've crossed the natural primal threshold. So then that gives you your belonging. So then you're not needing to get validation from outside of you. You're not needing, talking heads like myself to tell you who to be. You don't need that. And that's what we're missing. So a lot of the ailments that I see in men across the world is because they do not have these relationships, right? That's what we're talking about. A large part of being human is understanding your relationships. Plant, animal, mineral, ethereal, human, more than human, other than human, superhuman, non-human. And we're not doing it in ways that we're seeing, and we're just focused on men here, that we're not seeing men being able to mature in their life. And we're not having the community around them to acknowledge that maturation, to be seasoned, which is so needed. So we're lacking a lot in this way. Where are our elders? Where are they? I see a lot of old people. Not saying I don't respect them, I do. But they're not here to offer any more wisdom. They are here to keep everything on track the way it's been.
Right.
Look at me. I have these things. One day you'll be like me. Why is that important? Where also are the guides and the mentors? The actual adults that are here to hold that space so that elders can actually arrive and so that the youth can actually come into their adulthood too and mature. Where are they? Well, we're not given that opportunity because we've outsourced, right? We've handed off our responsibility, which is to care for life. And so we have to invigorate that channel again. So men, yes, men are struggling with this, with acceptance, with belonging. And even when it's a good thing because they've identified with their pain for so long, they can't see it. So they reject it too. Too soon. Because they have not been able to feel safe. And they have not been able to be received. They have not been able to be recognized, to be witnessed, like you were saying. All of this plays into it. So this is what I pose as a question. If this is the case and this is what we're suffering from and we are experiencing it, not only as a statistic, but a real life happening, that our friends are dying by their own hands. When do we take that as severe as it is and start to wake up to our responsibilities? To start taking care of each other, just to put it out there. Just not only to say, I'm here to support you, but to also say, like, I need help. That's the responsible thing to do. And I think from that place, right, comes grief. Grieving all the things we did not have. Grieving all the ways we wished it was differently. Grieving all that, because that's the unifying factor. And then being able to come through that with a sense of Gratitude.
Mm.
Gratitude of praising of this life that we do have and those that still remain and those that have gone on. So there isn't, for me, especially with like how you and I talk, talk to me tomorrow within in a different kind of context and it'll be a different answer. But in this way, to tie it in, attuning to the things that you do not have, not because you deserve them or not because you've worked so hard that you've earned them, but what's been missing. Maybe you did have your dad in your life, but he just wasn't emotionally present, but he did everything that he was supposed to do. Gratitude for that, and also grieving that he wasn't able to be there for you when you needed him. He didn't give you the talk about relationships. He didn't give you about your sexual energy. He didn't even give you the things that we are now sourcing from others, our own peers. So we're kind of having to adult ourselves,
Right.
each other through, because that's all that we're left with. And how do we transmute that and alchemize the pain of that? Resentment maybe, or even the guilt and shames that you're talking about. Because I did not know, because I wasn't guided, therefore I went onto the path of self-destruction, and that way has harmed others. So there is a space for this of redemption, and there is a space for this of deep knowing of your grief, and there's a space for unity to come to. So what I'm talking about is the very ground that nurtures all these other things that we've complicated so much onto, like, how do we address this? Therapy is good. Psychology is good. But what are we missing? All those things are like one-on-one. I'll tell you what, every therapist I talk to, they tired. They overworked. Maybe it's time for men like us that understand the importance of regenerative leadership to just step into the spaces and see who's there. And to encourage those who have not yet stepped into the ceremony of their life, for us to provide those spaces. Not because we know better, not because we've got all the answers, but because we know what's possible. And if you don't know what's possible, then you only see things as impossible. So if our ancestors saw the ocean not as a block, but as a passage, what's stopping us? Ourselves. Because of what we didn't have, because of the way things weren't. So that's why I like to step into, that knowledge base. The ancestral intelligence, because it takes me to the place where I can reinvigorate where I'm at. Kawama moi, kawama hope, we look to the past to face our future.
Wow. Like you're saying, the new AI, right? Like or just the reality, as I get older as well, is this remembrance.
Yeah.
It's and you said this earlier, is that it's nothing new. It's just repackaging it so it's digestible in today's reality. It's all relevant. It's relevant as it was then, as it is even more so now. And what I really loved before we sat down for this interview is you said, we're not seeking what our ancestors saw. We're seeking what our ancestors felt.
Yeah. It was we're not replicating what our ancestors did. We're seeking what they saw.
Exactly. And that's so potent, and I feel like now, for whatever reason, in this phase of humanity, we're getting in tune with this aspect of feeling, right? Yeah. Because it's new for a lot of us, it's also very challenging. And the aspect of feeling, there's a lot of feelings that we are not familiar with or comfortable feeling. And so what came up for me as you were sharing, two things popped up, was initiation and ceremony. Yeah. And these two aspects that, to speak for myself as a man and as a father, is probably one of the most difficult things to allow myself to embrace, was the initiation, where to the degree where we don't necessarily have a choice. Yeah. Losing my mother was a powerful initiation. Yeah. Having my son was a powerful initiation. Yeah. And as well as it being an initiation, it was very much a ceremony. And when we come with the lens and understanding of life being a ceremony, and through my own experiences of going to ceremony, the shamans would always say, the true ceremony is what comes after. That is the truest ceremony. That's where the work comes in, and the integration that's where it lands. And that's where most people falter. As they go into these plant medicine ceremonies thinking it's going to change them overnight, which it has an influence, but what are you doing with it after? What are you following through with what you learned? That's where it's redefined ceremony for me. And as you were sharing, like it is a time for us who have experienced these potent spaces of initiation and ceremony to really open up the doors for them to come in and experience what it means and feels like to actually feel safe and supported by other brothers. That in itself is an initiation.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself is a ceremony. And that in itself is life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
Just that aspect of surrendering and allowing yourself to be witnessed. My curiosity comes with in modernity of life, where ceremony is not even, if anything, it's designated to Sundays for, majority of people.
Yeah.
When in reality, even in those scriptures, that it's a daily experience of embodying that, not just celebrating it on one day. What I'll say, the difficulties of modernity in life, of today's reality, what are some ways you found as ways for you to live in ceremony? Because the way you speak, it's very clear you're intentional, and you choose your words wisely as well as your actions because of your connection to ceremony. Mm-hmm. And this comes in terms of like, how can we also inspire others to step into experiencing or finding spaces that allow them as well to experience initiation of brotherhood, as well as the ceremony of what it means to be in brotherhood.
So if we understand, right, that it's something that we're missing. Mm-hmm. So once again, it's like, how do we know what it is? By knowing what it's not. So a lot of the times the modern man and their thinking is like, I need discipline. Okay, good. I need structure. Sweet. And I need routine. Absolutely. Perfect. So now that you've set that up, you're disciplined enough to wake up in the morning to get your routine going on. Maybe you got a cold plunge sauna, self-care routine, whatever, go to the gym, and then you go off to work, and then you come back, right? So that's a routine. It's good. Tasks of the day. But remember, we're not doing these things because they're chores. We're doing them because they sharpen us. Mm-hmm. They help us elevate. They help us enhance our wellness and our health. They should be routines and disciplines that acclimate and attune our emotions and our mental capacity. But then what's the difference between discipline and devotion and routine and ritual? Maybe it's just wordplay. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm just saying things because it sounds cooler for it to be a ritual and a routine. Maybe it sounds cooler to be devoted rather than disciplined. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that those two coexist. Mm-hmm. If you have a ritual that sharpens you and shapes you, then if you have a routine that sharpens you and shapes you, then what is the ritual that provides the soul? So that now you're not doing it as a task for your own, personal development. Mm-hmm. It's like you're doing it now with the soul connection and service to what? That it's not just for you. Where's it going? That's what makes it a ritual. Mm-hmm. That you're participating in it with the understanding that it's going to go somewhere else, away from you, towards something else. So that's the beauty of the ritual when it's involved with the routine. Now, if you look at the discipline, that's the thing that gets you up in the morning. That's the thing that gets you back home. That's the thing that when you're disciplined to not, have the cheat day too early. Mm-hmm. Stay on the diet, my brother. But once again, what is the devotion? Are you just doing it because you're counting calories and you want to have a certain shape, or you're just so disciplined because it's like at 3 a.m. that's when all the successful people wake up. Mm-hmm. So I got to do. Okay, maybe we're missing the point. Mm-hmm. That there's a devotional thing. It's not that I have to do this. It's I get to do this. I get to bring myself to this way because it's not only good for me, but it's there for others. And that devotional should spring forth that says, this is my life. I'm so grateful. And yes, the discipline is there, of course, because that's not going to be the first thing I wake up with in the morning. It's going to be an alarm. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I just wake up naturally, but then I find my devotional throughout the time that I'm doing it. So it's not just about saying what it is. It's about like what it's not too. Mm-hmm. If you're finding yourself caught up in what it means to get tasks done and chores and all that, it's very mechanical. Mm-hmm. It's very robotic. So where does the human come? Right. Where does the soulful person come from? Where does the heart-led man come from? So if we're talking about ceremony and intentionality and all those things, you won't understand what those things are because you've never stepped into it. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to know something from a book. You can read and gather information, but you don't really got the knowledge. And there's no wisdom because you haven't experienced it yet. Knowledge and experience creates the wisdom. So the progress of these things can shape something, but ceremony requires others. Going on a mushroom journey by yourself, I wouldn't claim as a ceremony. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. but being in a space with others who are there with intentions to create a space for healing, to create a space of exploration, to where their integration can come. It's just like what you said. The very act of taking medicine is not the ceremony itself. It's the work and the heavy lifting that comes afterwards. That's the whole thing. So ceremony is life, right? And it's not just moment to moment. Oh, this is a ceremony. This is a ceremony. No, that overcomplicated. Find the spaces of ceremony to exist with others, participate, not perfection. It alleviates a lot of the burden. Let the ugly things be delicious too. Let the bitter medicines aid you. There's nuance and subtleties that need to be brought into it. So when I come from that place of ceremonies, because I've gone to places with others where I did not have anything. No food, no water, out in nature with nothing but mosquitoes. And grateful for the sun to rise and to see the stars at night. Grateful to be quiet. Grateful to not think about anything else but where I'm at. And to clear the clutter of my mind. Been into deep medicine journeys that have revealed so many visions to me that I didn't know was even there. Been a part of deep, deep, deep understandings through chant and song and dance. So if it's meaningful, the behavior changes, right? And that's how we know it's sacred. Because it's not out there. I'm not transcending it. I'm just getting more involved. The engagement now is not just in one hand, it's in both. And it's also in my feet and in my head. And it's right in here. So everything starts to come alive. I believe that's what ceremony should do. It shouldn't be something that you have to keep going to re-up on your healing or to re-up on this perspective that you need to have in order to live your life. Ceremony should be immersive in its way. So yeah, that's how I see it. So when we're missing that in our culture, and we start to speak on these things, like this is what it has to be. This is what it should. I'm presenting something of here's a perspective. Here's some hindsight, insight, and foresight towards this thing, but it's mysterious. Everybody, if you're willing to ask the questions, then things will be revealed. And if you're willing to participate with your hands and actually do with your physical body, then the answers will be revealed to you too. No amount of podcasts, even though we're on one, is going to suffice.
Right.
Think of this more as an invitation for you to go out into the world and meet your edges.
Meet your edges. I love that. I'd love for you to share your experiences of your own ceremonies that you participated in.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious, because I've never had I've been invited in the past, but I've never actually committed or followed through, which is going on Vision Quest or doing Sundance as part of your own indigenous wisdom and experience and heritage. I'd love for you to share what that's done for you and what that experience was like to participate and be in that depth of ceremony.
Yeah, good question, brother. Yeah, so just on the focus of that with like Vision Quest, so that's like the modern understanding, right? It's like we're questing for a vision. But I understand that like it's used because of how it was brought, and I don't know where the word came from. But actually in the Lakota way, it's hamblechiapi. So there's like cry for a vision. You're pleading. Because this is just kind of the way I'm brought to it, because I do have that lineage, and I was going to Sweat Lodge, and then some of the visions that had come through in the dreams, and my cousin, he is a Sundancer, and I was telling him just what my dream was, and I didn't know anything about Sundance. I just like only knew like Sweat Lodge and certain other medicines, and so when I told him that, he's like, that sounds like a Sundance vision. I was like, really? He's like, you should come. So then I went, and then it unfolded, for the past 8 years now. So crying for a vision is kind of the first step towards something like Sundance. If you are being called, I didn't say because you chose it, I said because you're being called to that ceremony. And I speak on it that way because I'm just in the grand lineage scheme, co-conspirators all around, I really don't know anything. But I know enough for myself. And I speak on this in that way, that I can just share how it's been for me. So crying for a vision, pleading by way of suffering, because it hurts to not have water for 4 days. It hurts to not have, actually not having food isn't as bad, but the water. So when you're in that space, for me, it's a place where I can empty and become hollow. and not navigate my pain, but allow it to be. And the mind that comes up is an investigation, right? It's an excavation to elevate. Excavate to elevate. It's like, oh, okay. Okay. I'm so thirsty right now. I gotta sit with it. You have to sit with it. Oh, what about this thing? Oh, I remember that time that person did this to you. Remember that time you did this thing and then now you feel so guilty? Oh, you're shaming yourself. Oh, you remember this time when you harmed somebody physically and they didn't get up and you walked away? Oh, is it, that's what will happen. It happens to me. Good. Because I need to process with Creator and creation and my ancestors. It's time for me to be with them. And over the course of the years, their guidance has shown to me how to navigate the other medicines, how to navigate community, how to navigate myself on a soul level, heart-led level, because I'm so inundated and conditioned, by social media, my friend group, living here on Maui, being able to stop and slow down and to do, cry for a vision is me just once again in reverence, in the active, active form of awe, and then coming back. But it's all done with community. It's all done with the presence of elders and the presence of children. When you sit up, you prepare. You have to get all your prayer ties ready. You have to get your directional poles. There's a lot of stuff in preparation. There's a lot of conversations. And there's also people there in support to keep the sacred fire going, to have the lodge ready and the sacred grounds to be tended to, so that what you're doing is actually guided. And you're not just out in the wild by yourself, because that happens too. You'll be lonely because you're alone. And just having that knowledge that there's people there sending their love and their prayers to you. They care for you. And they're beyond the veil. They don't even exist, because your whole reality is just in this circle. It's comforting. And then it reveals to me who I really am, and all the other layers that have been draped on, the draping of these layers, all these extra towels or blankets or whatever, jackets. It's like I can choose to keep them or let them go. Having all of this on me is just way too hot all the time. I don't want to be frustrated anymore or angry. I can be upset about stuff, but I just don't want that to be my go-to in how I perceive life. So I'll let these go. I'll let it go. Shedding at one layer at a time if need be, or 5, 10. And then get back into the lodge. Cleanse up, and then live that life. Like that actually happened. Live a life like that was real. Live a life like it mattered. And that's up to me. No one else is demanding that. Even, Creator, doesn't come to us to give us rules on how to be human. Creator gives us ceremonies so we can just understand our lives better, and understand our connection better, and know what being a human means, and the beauty of this immensity of life. And so that's why the traditions are important. They need to be respected. Even though I might innovate for myself and what that looks like within my own spaces and circles, if I go to my teachers and I go to their lodges, I always respect it. I don't ever question it, because that's where I came from. So I'm not replicating what our ancestors did. I'm seeking what they saw, and being a bridge, and at times a shield, and also at times an invigoration of another channel, like a oh stick. Stick into the ground. Do not be afraid to look what's under there. Okay, good. You made that. Time to plant. Let it grow. So there's that too.
Wow. Yeah, as you were sharing, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we had an interview with this beautiful woman, Faya from Ayotera, and she was talking about protocols and how things are constantly evolving, but there's always going to be these protocols that keep the traditions alive.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing when it comes to you being supported in Sundance and participating in the protocols to ensure the safety as well as the transformation that comes, and the witnessing of it and the support of it. Faya gave me this beautiful insight in terms of voice and using our voice, because she's a sound journeyer, using her voice and different instruments from her culture and taking people on a journey. And it was the first time I've experienced someone who was so in tune with their voice in a really profound way. And as of recently, for me, in this phase of the version of who I am, that's constantly evolving. When I was younger, my mom and her friends, my aunties, had a Filipino accent. So when they would say my name, they'd say Leo instead of Leo. So every time I hear someone use my name in Leo, it reminds me of my mom. And the last couple of months, as I stepped out of my cave of grief and processing and allowing myself to be witnessed in community and participate in community, I was introducing myself as Leo, but when I would say bye, they'd say bye Leo, and it would stick with me. And when I spent that week participating in some of the events that Faya was offering, it clicked for me. And my partner now was like, I think Leo means voice. You should look into that. And I was like, okay. And right before I went to her sound journey, I was with her and we looked it up, and it literally means voice. And so growing up, I was also known as Kuya from my younger sister. And so I realized I'm Kuya Leo to the people in this house. And as I combine them, it's big brother voice. And it hit me as I stepped into this journey with Faya of like, wow, what I'm being requested in terms of the evolution of myself is to get in tune with my voice and using it with integrity, as well as with grace. And something that I haven't always had with my voice, but I've always realized and learned the power of my voice through storytelling and through sharing. So I'm curious, because as someone who, as I witness and listen to and have shared space with virtually now in person, is this profound relationship you have with the way you use your voice. And I know it's, as Faya always says, it's not something that you're necessarily born with. It comes from your experiences growing up, because in order to have a connection with your voice, you have to realize you don't have it. And so I'm curious, as someone who's such a potent speaker and who can speak to the soul and to the heart of not just men, but people who are willing to listen. And it resonates so deeply. How did you find your voice and the ability to use it in such a healing and powerful way?
Good question, man. You know, the journey with that was a difficult one, because, you know, I didn't always have very supportive cousins. So, you know, you hear a song on the radio, you start singing, and they're like, oh, who sings that? And like, oh, this person is like, good, keep it that way. Bullying, man. So, you know, the expression of the voice, and even in the way that you would like explain something, and it's just like, oh gosh, you talk so much. And you know, and my mom, I love her, but even too, like growing up, I was always like talking, because I was like, had so many ideas. She's just like, oh, you know, why are you always making noise in the house? Why you always talk so much? It's just, what do you need to say? You know, I understand now, but at the time I was just like, oh gosh, she just doesn't want to hear me. Like, this isn't working. And so like, you know, I had a period of my life when I was younger where I was just like, I'm not going to sing, I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to anything. However, I have a personality. You know, like there's a charismatic way that I choose to engage with people, because I like, you know, it started as being entertaining. I like to entertain, you know, tell jokes and do all this, and because, you know, I am my mother's son. And that's the kind of woman she is. Right? She gathered people around, she would talk. So I learned a lot from her, like how to do that, how to speak to people, how to get them to understand you. She was very much like able to fit, you know, in any place.
Chameleon style.
Chameleon, yeah, social butterfly. Like a chameleon. So she can, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, and we're talking about a Hawaiian woman now. She's dark like me, darker than me, you know, very Polynesian. And then so it's like, but here she is with all different ethnicities, all different countries, because we traveled in the military. And so I learned a lot of that from her. Like, how do I speak to people? How do I engage? How do I be pleasant? And that was the start. And then I started to really tap into my grandfather, because he was the patriarch of the family. And so when he spoke, people listened. And because he carried a presence, he carried a certain kind of ano, right? How you carry yourself. Well, it was respectable. And he also wasn't looking for anything. It was. And so I looked at him too. And then I also have parts of my stepdad. He's a quiet man. Always let my mother do the talking and always enforce whatever she said. And so I saw that too. I was like, oh, okay, this is what happens when you're quiet and you're observant, not just blah, 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 blah. How do you have some restraint and some reserves so that you can actually observe, right, and see, and not as a passive one, but very active in listening. So that's how I started to understand it. And then the keys started coming from work with halal and cultural school, learning chants, activating my voice, learning songs and playing music, being involved in luau, right? The entertainment industry, all of those things, because I became an orator, an MC. And then I looked towards, the wisdoms, nana ikikumu, right? Looking back to the source of knowledge of the orators, right? The kakalaleo, right? How do you hold these spaces? How you speak? So I saw that as a game. And so a lot of it was showman at first and performing, because I was like, if I do it this way, then it's like this. And if I say this thing, then they'll laugh.
Yeah.
So it was in the spaces of edutainment. And then as it went, I was like, oh, this is a big responsibility, actually. So in the word, in the language, in the voice, there is life or there is death. So how are you going to do this now? Like, that was what they say to me. It's like, now that you know, you've been able to, craft a couple riddles, and you've been able to solve a couple puzzles. So now what are you going to do? So I started to understand, with oration and public speaking, pitches, cadence, tones, weaving, storytelling, circles, everything became very simple. And there was an understanding of, if you're going to invite someone to the conversation, what does that look like? Because if you're always inviting yourself, you're not leaving any space. So what's the space in between? And that was part of the learning too, because between drum beats is how we actually hear the drum beat. It's, can you be the song after the silence? Can I not just say something that's impactful or in the right combination that then lands in you, that you want to change your life? I mean, we could do that. And I'd be Tony Robbins, or I can tell a story and weave something that makes you think for a long time. Like, oh gosh, this is what Kale was saying. It's been 5 years since I heard that thing. That's just what I chose. And so now I do it this way. Go into podcasts, and it matures, it changes. Because I say this too, and I want people to understand. A lot of what I do and how I do this is because I have faith. I have devotion. And this faith, if you want to give it a label, is an animistic one. This is probably the first spirituality that came to people, no matter where you are in the world, is that everything has life and everything has death. And all of this, in a way, is the curation of intelligent design has come about. So if your spirituality is too complicated for a child to understand, why are you doing it? Because at the point of your adulthood, it's no longer about you, even if you have children or not. A true adult, fully fledged, should be in service to what is, not to their own schemes and demands and egoic materialism. So if we're going to take religion and spirituality and complicate it and sophisticate it, then what's really happening? So I am not just here to demystify or to give people codes or to break it down simply so that's it. No, I'm chewing it too. But I'm not chewing it in a way to explain it to you that I end up biting my own tongue. I'm just trying to talk in an eloquent way so that you can understand that maybe the middle of nowhere is the center of somewhere. And then saying again, let the riddle and the rhyme and the metaphor be the language of the sacred. So I don't have to, and I don't want to, encapsulate things in their essences and package them and say, here. Yeah, it happens because we live in a commodified society. Right. But if your child cannot understand what you're saying because you haven't sung them songs, and you haven't attuned your voice in a way that's receivable by them, instead of giving them directives and commands, why don't we say, how was it like to just sit down right here? Did it feel good? Like, that's simple.
Yeah.
And then even too with the spirituality, it's like, I'm not going to tell them how they need to believe. I'm going to show them. Look at this string game. Watch. Let's play this game. It's called Hey. That's it. See this? It's a sun. This is a star. This is a bridge. Can we do that? Because in our hands, we hold CHAOS, ORDER. So if you pay attention, right, to it, just in that way, because children pick it up. They're like, oh, they might not have heard that CHAOS, but they watch the hands close. And they watch this one open. And then they watch this. So the order is on the outside, and then the chaos is on the inside. Or you can do the same. ORDER, CHAOS. There's order on the inside. There's chaos on the outside. A child might not understand the language being used or the letters, because they haven't got to that place, but they'll always remember this symbol and this metaphor. Right. Spirituality. That's simple. It's almost too simple that people are like, rubbish.
Yeah.
That's garbage.
Too easy to be true.
It's just like, dude, that's a load of bullshit. What you just did. And it's like, watch. Look at the kids. If you think what I'm doing is bullshit, I mean, look in the mirror and try to understand yourself. Why have you made things so complicated?
Right.
Look at your life. If you think what I'm doing is bullshit, look at your life. Because this is for a child. And you judge it. And I've had so many conversations with men primarily. Women get it, but men, ooh, egos.
Yeah.
That's why I say responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Adaptability, learning. So uninitiated boys turn into grown-up children.
So true. And that's society today. Majority of what we see as men are very much still in their boyhood.
Yeah. And I just, and I say it not as to be an antagonistic towards people. And I just say it as like, this is, come on. Like my hand is out here, literally.
Right.
Figurative, metaphor, like, hey, me either. Me too.
Same.
I just chose a little differently. And if your idea or projection of me is that I'm trying to take you somewhere that you don't want to go, okay.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm here to do. I'm actually trying to help you reveal to yourself the inner guidance system, that CPR that's so needed, that ceremony, prayer, and ritual. In a society that's forgotten how to breathe. Just want to just be like, hey, look, you can have that too. And this internal guidance system that we call Na'au, this intuition that our ancestors have always had. And that's the evolution. It's through the emotions, through the emotional intelligence. That's why we have all these things that involve our ability to be in conflict with each other and to be challenging, but not to negate each other's perspectives. Not to somehow nullify you because what you're doing is against me. Even though it's true, right, in society, because there is such a thing as colonization. There is such a thing as rampant, systematic displacement and genocide and oppression and all these things. Those things exist. I'm not saying they don't. But what I'm saying is, if we look at each other as common people, I'm not a billionaire, are you? Again, I'm not trying to target. I'm just saying, focus, right? You and I, we're common men. We're moving through life.
Human
in
to
a
human.
similar face. There's unity there in our diversity. There's strength in our diversity. But we have to choose that path. It takes work. It's much harder to pick a path that isn't chained to an ideology. And then people would argue like, oh, that's an ideology in itself. Is it though? Because what you've just done is you over-rationalize something so simple. So that's your own avoidance speaking. Because I'm not here to dance around things. I got action. You want action? Come get action. It's fun to have the discussion, but that's what it is. We have to understand ourselves as, are we actually doing the things, or are we just always speaking about them? Is this entertainment, or is this education, or is it edutainment? What is it? Do you have direction? Do you have discernment? And are you decisive? Basics. Can you keep it simple, start small, and be consistent so that it's effective? Good. Is your spirituality understandable for a toddler? Good. Basic. And it's through the songs, it's through the rhymes, it's through the riddles, it's through the actual doing. Wakahana kaike is how the knowledge is gained. By doing. Spend more time with your kids.
Yeah.
Right?
Amen to that.
Spend more time with your loved ones and your family. Spend more time with your friends. More time with people that care about you and that love you. So you can keep loving them back. Because you don't know how much time you have left with them. And you're going to miss them when they're gone. So just keep doing your best. Because they deserve it. And so do you. And the feelings will ring true. The emotions will come. Just like weather.
Wow. Thank you, brother.
You
You mentioned this aspect of the power of diversity. Based on my own experience of traveling, is, if not, but probably the most diverse I've ever experienced. I didn't realize you had a background of moving around with military too, because my dad was in the Navy, and that's how I landed in Oahu. So once I landed at 5 years old, I never left, but I was in the military environment up until I was 16. So I got to see these polarities of growing up in a military environment and then switching over to my dad retiring and then growing up in a local neighborhood of Salt Lake.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I was getting a really powerful blessing in terms of experience. But I didn't learn the potency of it until later on in life when I started traveling. I knew early on, though, that if I was to ever have kids, I was going to raise them up in Hawaii. It made sense to me because of the aloha within the community, the safety I felt as a child, all the aunties in the neighborhood, all the uncles who were watching everybody's back. What I learned when I started traveling the world is everyone would be like, why is it so easy for you to make friends? And at first I didn't know. And then there was one experience, we were in Colombia, and across the restaurant was this other group of people. Once I made eye contact with this group, it was like, wait a second, I think I know. And then
I think I know.
10 minutes later, a round of shots got delivered to us.
Wow.
And they're like, oh, it's from those guys over there is asking if you're from Hawaii. And I was like, of course.
Wow.
And so we had this experience where we unioned and shared our journeys. And my friend pulled me to the side at the end. He was like, I get it now. The reason why it's so easy for you to make friends wherever we travel to was because you grew up in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I saw what you carry in those guys.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. I was like, wow, I easily could be anywhere in the world for the most part and connect with others. And I realized that's because of the way I grew up.
Yeah.
Is this cultural of acceptance and reciprocation of aloha and respect. And so it leads to this kind of question of, and Maui itself, and I think Hawaii in general, is going through a really deep identity transformation. I've seen this unfolding as I've been traveling in and out of it, but now that I'm here full time, and it's so obvious to me that the identities of which it has held as I was growing up is shifting.
Yep.
And the desire is this aspect of returning to this energy of what Hawaii was for me growing up in a way that it's very clear, even in Oahu, which is why I refuse to live in Oahu now with my son.
Yeah.
Or chose that island to relocate to, is just how much has changed in terms of the lack of aloha.
Yeah.
The violence is rising and all of these things, and there's a lot of symptoms happening.
Yeah.
It's presenting to me intuitively is that something has to change and is shifting at the same time, and an opportunity for us to redefine what it means to be in community here, especially Maui specifically. Over the last couple of years, the grief it's been holding as a culture and the suppression as well of the anger that's come from what has happened is brewing this beautiful opportunity for people to come together instead of complain, start talking about solutions. It begins with us communing as a community, and it's happening in small pockets everywhere. With that shifts happening, the older paradigm of the way we were told we needed to live here, which for me growing up is like you either work construction or you work in the tourism industry or the restaurants, and at the time it still is too, like lucrative to survive, but it doesn't have a deep sense of purpose. I see this opportunity happening for us to redefine what our community is. The conversations are getting more and more potent in terms of bringing it more community as opposed to relying on the outside world. I feel like I learned a lot of that during COVID, how important it is as an infrastructure for us not to have to rely on the outside world. And if we just looked within as ourselves, how we could create sustainability if anything were to happen, so to speak. I'm curious from your own experiences and background, spending time here in Hawaii and with the intention that you have, which is really powerful. With the diversity being crucial medicine to creating solution here, because we're a location of so many different cultures coming together.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this place magical. And that's what people feel here is that over the time of us sharing time and space together, we've created our own culture amongst different people from all over the world. People will share who are visiting here, won't even know how to put words to it, but know that they're being impacted energetically in some way. With so much change happening, and the hard part about change is it's always going to be fought in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because it's the unknown, and it's pushing people to be uncomfortable. And we're seeing the micro of the macro and the macro of the micro, and that uncomfortability with change on a big scale and a small scale. As someone, as myself, who is trying to be observant, but also find my way to navigate, to be a supporter, creating more conversation and more dynamics of healing and solution. And your observance of Maui over the last couple of years and the people on it, because we're very transient. And Maui has a way of letting you know if you're not meant to be here, and you can fight it, and she'll fight you with it, and then eventually she'll win. And it's caused a lot of people to leave. And if you're in a way meant to be here because of the way you're showing up, I've observed people transition here, find their way here in a really beautiful way because of what they offer the community and the land.
Yeah.
Their intention, right? Like their come from of being here isn't, look at me, this is where I'm at. It's, how can I show up in a good way and support?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing more of, especially even the tourism industry. People are curious, like, how can we actually support the people? It's not like I want to do the best boat ride. I want to, no, it's like, where are the restaurants and where are the people where we can actually support because we actually appreciate the culture there and what they offer. And seeing that shift is big for me because I've been in the tourism industry for so long. And it's always been like, they can't say no, everything's a yes, and you make it happen. But the inquiries that are coming through now are so much more, what I feel is like connected to the heart. And the tourism itself is shifting in that way too.
Yeah.
With that, where do you see yourself in all of this transformation? You know, and how are you willing to show up, and what are you feeling called to do? And this might be a way for you to like share what you are doing to bring, whether it's for Maui or for the macro of the world, spreading that aloha. What are ways you're finding your path and your clarity as to how to show up for the island, for yourself, and for your people?
Brother. This is good. Yeah, thank you. I was like, following the storyline and the thread, I was like, yeah, bro. Like, we're going here, there, we're going everywhere. That's that. Right on. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that because I relate to so much of what you were saying. I've been talking about regenerative human since like 15 years ago. And that was one of the things that got me invigorated. Was 15 years ago, I was leading myself towards entrepreneurship. Yeah. I was doing kayak tours. Wow. I was doing guided tours. So I was doing kayak tours and snorkeling and do that every day. And then I was also involved with the entertainment company my cousins have. And then I was working with them and I was doing MC stuff and all of that. And then I was also an officiant. So I was doing a lot of weddings for people that were visiting. So I had a lot of different looks in one day. And so I was thinking about this, like, what is this regenerative human thing? You know, we talk about sustainability a lot, but that kind of like infers that it needs to remain the same. I was like, we are desperate out here. We are overly touristed, overly developed. And we are in a place of the plantation times receding. So what are we doing now? So I was thinking about this regenerative thing for so long. And then regenerative, all this stuff starts showing up just in the past like 4 years. And I'm like, wow. Regenerative agriculture. And so people who are in the know, if you're one of them, it's like, oh, we've been talking about this for years, right? Like 20 years. So now it's coming, it's like regenerative agriculture, regenerative tourism, all these kinds of regenerative things. So that's how I see my place. It's almost like I had to understand the question first and then go through the journey to then finally be like, oh, it's trending. I'm right there. I got it right at the uptick.
Right.
Like, boom, banking on it. You know what I mean? And just in that way, it's like, I have my nonprofit. It's called Makoa Quest. We take people out on experiences in the ocean with kayaks and va'a, with the canoes. And then also we do bike tours. We also bring them into ceremonial spaces, right? And if they need that with family and things like that, we provide it through Makoa Quest. So it's a culturally rooted nonprofit that is on par with the regenerative tourism of bringing people another sense of what it means to be here. Not just because they're a tourist and we have to fit all that. No, we're talking about a culturally immersive experience towards their own understanding of themselves, not as a vacation or not as a tourist, but as a human being. Are you here to contribute? Are you here to help along this journey? And it's not volunteerism. It's not, because we're providing this service while we're also giving them an experience, while we're also tending to the relationship, while we're also, you see what I mean? So, and that's what it means to be regenerative. It means to return to the source that continues to give, and generate, right? So that's the attitude. It's like, can we not only do it sustainably, but can we do it in a way that the input and the energy is long lasting? So when we take people out onto a guided tour on the land, they are removing invasive species and they're also planting. They get to come back and they get to see, like, oh my gosh, this is the agroforestry plot that was made. And the same thing out in the ocean. Not only are they going to get to see whales, because that's a peak experience, right? But they also get to contribute to the local i'a out there. They also get to understand, like, doing a beach cleanup and things like that.
Right.
So it's not, it's are you a regenerative human being? Therefore, regenerative agriculture and tourism and all those other things can show up. So that's what I do. And then I also have my own coaching that I do, and I have my online community, which is called Now Academy. It's an ancient future community, right? Now Academy means new old way. So it's a place for people to come that have been looking for connections and people that are like-minded in ways that not only are we doing this to understand ourselves, right, as people, but we're contributing to a container, to a community that gives back. So it's a practice in that reciprocity, but also in the creation of regenerative human beings, right? And so that's what I do. And I'm still running ceremonies as well. I still officiate in a wedding here or there. I'll do grief ceremonies now. A lot of people have been asking me for grief ceremonies because people have passed, and it's become more familiar now that it's okay to do that. But yeah, that's me, Varath. Pretty much, you can find me on Instagram too. It's just my name, Kale, Kaalekahi. That's my main social media platform. But yeah, here for it all. I have baby coming and still running events and everything, although I am very much deep in that right now. But I'm available, especially for times like these. So thank you, my brother, for having me.
Thank you. 2 questions, 1 request. First question to you, Kale. What does it mean to be a human in present times?
That's the word in Hawaiian for human being. And I think it says it pretty eloquently in the sense of like ka, that projection into time and space, and naka, the quivering or the quiverer. So in a larger sense, being a kanaka, a human being is like, are you teeming with life? Are you able to sense all of those things around you and to carry it with you and express it through your artistry of your life? Can you make informed decisions upon what has happened, what's happening now, and what's going to be? Not only adaptable, responsible, and hold yourself in integrity, as a human being, but are you leaving something behind, like a legacy, for others to then carry on too, because they're worthy of carrying such things? And have you carried it well, knowing that they were coming? Can you pass something on that is regenerative, that's beneficial, that's sustainable, not green, but something that's important for human making? And so maybe through the doing of the human being, through the quivering of all the things that come, humbling ourselves, yet also having pride without arrogance, able to assist and be in service to creation, then we can be friends. You want to be in support of the creation of life and then also the good tidings and farewells of death. That to me means human. It's being human. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second is just an opportunity for you to maybe share some wisdom. I don't even like the word advice anymore.
I know, it's hard.
But it's share your insight, your wisdom for anyone out there who is struggling in their world of carrying things alone, male or female, of maybe just some words of guidance and appreciation to encourage them to find their way as well.
It's said many times, at least to me, because I've been fortunate enough to hear it from people, but that you're not alone. And I know even in the uttering of a word of like, you're not alone, is not always heard or even received or even, a way that we would even share it or say it. What I understand it to be, and this isn't advice, it's just what's happened to me, that there is beauty in this burden that I'm carrying. There's beauty in its own painfulness and its own elation and its exuberance. There's beauty in carrying this burden. And if you're not feeling supported in it, if you're not feeling like you're being tended to, like your life is being tended to in the ways that you need it, because you just weren't given the tools or you weren't being loved correctly or appropriately in the way that you needed, do not silence your voice. Ever. Speak up, speak out, and let your voice ring, even if it is in a whisper for now. Use your voice. Ask for what you need. Ask to be of service to things that are greater than you. Ask for the permission. Ask for it. Ask for the assistance and the love, and it will come. But you have to say it first. You have to bring it. That's the magic. You have to call it towards you so it will show up. And again, This isn't something that I'm putting and placing just on your sole responsibility, because there's a lot to it. There is. Yet you are the one that is navigating this ship of your life that is you. And if you need it, you're wondering, ask for help, ask for support. And it will show up. I mean, I guarantee, right? I can't say 100% of the time, but I can guarantee that somebody, out of the kindness of their own soul and graciousness and gratitude of who they are, because they have been given so much, will give to you willingly, gracefully. So use your voice.
Powerful. And the third final request is if you could close us out in prayer. I would greatly appreciate that and be honored to share this space with you.
From the zenith of the horizon, we give these offerings. We also know the difference between the sacrifices. Our offerings are the things in the gratitude that we can come and humble ourselves in conversation in this way. That the fruit of the language, these things that we call words, are allowed to be given life through the metaphor and through the understanding of the riddles and the rhymes of our communication. That we're not steadily saying things in ways that we chew our own tongues, that the mystery is allowed to live. And even knowing too that the sacrifices is because we are invoking change and transformation, not more suffering. Just a sacrifice of knowing that when something is let go from one hand, that means it's open to receive something else. And if the other hand is still gripping on to a lifeline, may it have the strength and the endurance to remain. But if that lifeline too needs to be severed, may they be able to let go, knowing that something else is coming towards them, that they're not alone, that the support system and the ways of unknowing actually brings about knowing. And so we do it in this way so that our ancestors can continue to guide us and to reveal themselves through us, and that creation will always have its life and death cycle. And that creator, wherever you are, is listening and knowing that your creation is being stewarded and tended to by those that claim to be human beings. And may our beingness take precedence over our doingness. And with that, we give love and gratitude, praises and grief for our ability to speak this language and to give prayer in ways that doesn't seem like it's a ceremony at all. So mahalo na tupuna, mahalo na ako, mahalo na au makua, yo na hoi, e aloha ki ala nui. Mahalo, mahalo, mahalo.
Thank you so much, brother. It was a pleasure. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the interview today. And if you haven't already done so, please like or follow us on whatever platform you're listening to, and let us know if you have any questions or comments or requests of future interviewees.
And we hope you find this inspiration, the clarity, and the direction to fully lean into being human, whatever that means for you. Aloha.